Taxpayers Union. Executive Vice President of the NTU is Brandon Arnold. Mr. Arnold, welcome. Nice to have you, sir. How you doing?
Thanks so much.
So listen, let's sort of break this down. No tax on tips. Listen, as soon as you begin a sentence, no tax on, I'm listening and I'm going to tend to approve. I've heard some people go that it sounds almost like a subsidy for people who are in professions that get tips. I don't think so, but if there's 10% of people thinking that, what's the best reply to that?
Yeah, I mean, I think there is some concern here. If you are looking at the employees of a restaurant, providing no tax on tips means that the server and the bartender get pretty big tax cuts, but maybe the dishwasher and the host or hostess might not. So there are some equity issues here. And the way I like to do tax cuts, I like to cut taxes for everybody. Let's cut taxes across the board. We did that in 2017 with the first Trump tax bill. I think that's one of the reasons why it was so effective, by lowering rates for everybody and by increasing the standard deduction for everyone. That meant it didn't matter whether you got tips, no tips, whether you got overtime, not overtime. However you earned your living, you saw lower taxes. More than 80% of people got lower taxes as a result of that bill. And I think we can replicate that here in 2025 and really help to stimulate the economy as a result.
All right, let's move to no taxes on overtime. And again, with the base coat of approval, anytime we're reducing taxes on anything for anybody, thumbs up. I call it a good start. What's the logic of no taxes on overtime?
Well, a lot of people are working really hard and they're putting in extra hours, and we want to make sure that they're not paying a higher tax bill as a result of that. The problem here is we're talking about a narrow benefit. Most people don't get overtime, or they're not even eligible for overtime if they're salaried at a certain level. So again, I think the best strategy here is across the board tax relief. Let's not pick and choose winners within the tax code. Let's just provide across the board lower taxes for everybody. I'd like to see the standard deduction increase. Maybe we can look at the child tax credit, and of course, lowering rates on individuals, on businesses, on everybody. That is the secret sauce for tax reform. That's how we did things in 2017. And again, I think that's why we got such a favorable economic response. Wages went up, inflation was less than 2%, and everybody by and large was pretty happy as a result.
I think there's something else that might make people happy. If you've noticed, as I have, that we might have a bit of a bleeding work ethic in America, getting people to actually show up to work at all and put in a lot of hours. This might be a little incentive to get people to actually listen. I'm looking at people who work 40 hours. If you'll work 45 or 50, icing on the cake. So it might increase the work ethic. All right, let's talk about people who have worked their entire lives. Like, I don't know, me. And I'm 67. Still, I'll be here till they kick me out. But I've been paying into Social Security my entire life. Before we get to the notion of no taxes on Social Security, little bit of history. I know it's been a big deal for you, everybody that's in the tax-cutting wing of ideological life. Social Security's been around for decades. The whole notion of paying in with money that I've already paid taxes on, it's just been crazy. The notion of hitting me again when I'm in retirement, start with the logic of that.
Yeah, absolutely. People that put money into Social Security should be able to get that money back out. Unfortunately, the system has been really poorly run over the years, and we need to look at modernizing it and overhauling it. But for the time being, absolutely, if you paid into Social Security, there's no question that you should get those dollars back to you. Unfortunately, we're looking at a situation where the Social Security Trust Fund has been unstable, and now it could be exhausted in as little as 9 years. We could begin to see benefit cuts as a result of that. So I'm really hopeful that we put Social Security on the table in terms of shoring it up, reforming the program, making sure that it's there for future generations, because right now it has been mismanaged and it does not have the stability that it ought to have. It's such an important program for senior citizens.
Is there a number knocking around? I know everybody's different, but on what the average Social Security recipient could realize in terms of benefit from this?
In terms of benefit from no tax on Social Security, I don't know the number off the top of my head, but obviously you're talking about significant amounts of money. A portion of your Social Security, when you do pay taxes, income taxes on that, they don't just go to the general revenue, though. A portion of those do go to the Social Security Trust Fund, which is being depleted right now at an unprecedented rate. So it is a complicated policy matter, one that I think certainly we need to provide some tax relief to seniors, but we also need to look at the long-term viability of the Social Security Trust Fund in that program.
60 seconds to finish, a broad overview. One thing we got to do is make sure the Trump tax cuts remain permanent, because if they don't, it'll be a massive tax increase on virtually everybody.
Yeah, $4.5 trillion, perhaps even more than that in terms of a tax increase that could hit American families and workers at the end of this year. We absolutely cannot let that happen. And I think we need to go further. We need to make sure we're creating economic growth in this package, making sure we have the incentives for businesses to invest in the United States economy, to grow their businesses, to build more structures, more factories, employ more Americans. I think that's really critical to getting the economy back on track and to ultimately to lowering prices, because that, I think, is the number one issue facing Americans now.
Brandon Arnold, National Taxpayer Union. Thanks for the heroic stuff you guys do. Thank you very much for being on today.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, if Brandon's happy, if I'm happy, if conservatives are